Any tips are from Canada? I don't know. Canada's pretty chill, I would say. Like, I would say we're like a weird hybrid between Americans and Brits, if that makes any sense. Like, people are really nice, but like, we'll think you're a fucking asshole, but we just won't say it. Like, if you have bad manners, or if you're just like a little bit rude, people will just be like, wow, this guy's a fucking prick. And they'll talk behind your back about it. But like, other than that, we're kind of British in the sense that like, not a lot of people go out and chat up like random strangers as much as they do in the States. But we're a lot more liberal than Brits are. You know, we're not like singing the Smiths here, like, oh, England, it's such a blonde place. You know, we're like a little hybrid. It's like, if you got good manners, you're nice, people love you. If you're rude or cunty or an asshole or a prick or a bitch, then people fucking really hate you. And people like to swear more. I think that's just an American thing. Why don't Americans swear when they talk? It's like literally every other fucking place on the planet swears when they talk, except America. I don't get it. It's crazy. It's like you say cunt in America, they look at you sideways. Okay, history is basically an identity struggle. That's a great way to put it. I'm glad you said that. I'm already way on board. We want to be our own thing, but what the hell does that look like? Are we those who were colonized? Are we British and French? Are we like our neighbors to the south? What about all the multiple cultures that live here? Shit's wild, man. Yeah, exactly. People were trying to like, because it was kind of like, am I British or French thing? But then we always had like heavy immigrant populations from the world wars. So there was also that identity. And then it was also like, we were just like America was like advanced and more industrialized than we were. We use feet and inches and shit like that because all the fucking screws and metal parts and shit that we would buy to build shit was from America. So we would import so much shit and we just export raw resources into America to be like, you know, manufactured, and then we would buy that shit back, right? My province's biggest export is electricity. We just make a fuck ton of hydroelectricity and we just sell it to the States for cheaper than we fucking get it. And yeah, that's why I think I like Tragically Hip so much. It was like a big thing where it's like, let's pay more attention to like Canadian artists and like, you know, cultivate our own identity, because we're having such a bad identity crisis even in the 90s. Like no one, like, it doesn't, like no one, like I said, if no one would say I'm Canadian, they would tell you their background. Like there is, yeah, exactly. It's just a cultural identity crisis is being Canadian. That's what it is. That's why Tragically Hip is so good. Like just such good Canadiana. It came from the 90s. It was all like expressing like disappointment in like politics and acknowledging like parts of our history and shit like that. You know, just trying to scratch together an identity so that people can like get behind an idea and be patriotic about it, you know? Because like it's such like a general thing of like being Canadian. Like we're really nice and and what else are we like? Like, I don't know, you know? We ain't bloodborne, nah. But like, I don't know. It's harder to explain Canada to Europeans because like, I was trying to tell Sleep, I'm like, bro, he's like, oh, we could just drive, you know, we could just go to there. We just do road trips around. I'm like, bro, if I want to drive to the next town, from Winnipeg to Thunder Bay, do you know how long of a fucking drive that is? That's 22 hours to the next city. Not even like the next big city, the next city. Like there's nothing, there's like such a vast empty space in Canada. It's like Russia in that sense. If you love nature, you'll love Canada. If not, you better pick a good city like Montreal, Vancouver. Gotta try poutine, and that's about it. Get in touch with nature and eat poutine. Half of our population is based 300-kilometer stretch. Yeah, like, have you guys ever seen this image? I've probably shown this, honestly, 20 times in the past year. 50% of Canada's population live below this line. I want you guys to see this image if you've never seen it before. I really do. 50% of Canada lives below the purple line. Is the traffic really bad here where I live? Yes, because the civil infrastructure, our roads are shit. Depending on where you are. Where I live in Manitoba, they're dog shit compared to the States. They're not like built for like big populations. Literally half, yes, this is true. Half of all of Canada's population lives right here where Toronto is. Like if you look at the population density spread of Canada, it's literally all within a 100-kilometer band along the American border. Like it's insane. So yes, half of Canada lives below the American border for the most part. And I guess, oh, this actually counts Halifax, but Nova Scotia, there's not like a lot of people there. It's very beautiful on the East Coast, but if you can get out to the West Coast, if you're like a Seattle kind of person or Washington, super fucking beautiful there. Whistler, the drive up the West Coast is one of the nicest things you could ever see. East Coast is extremely beautiful as well. We got New Brunswick, we've got the coastline there, Puffins, Newfoundland, all that shit, icebergs. And then here you got plains, you got, you know, the Red Rocks, Colorado shit around Alberta. Ontario and Quebec are like cultural hubs. Quebec is so nice, but if you go to Quebec City, people there are assholes. Like, French Canadians are pricks. Dude, they will literally, if you say something to them in fluent French, they go, they'll scoff at you. They will make fun of people from France. They will make fun of people from France's French accents. That's how brutal they are. Like, they don't give a fuck. But Montreal is not like that. Montreal is a lot more diverse. Everyone speaks English there, and they're not cunty about you speaking English or French. Yeah, Montreal is super nice. I like partying there. I mean, the territories, if you want to go up there, it's just like everyday northern lights, really beautiful wilderness. You know, it's like it's cheap Alaska. Like, do you want to go to Alaska but not spend a fucking shit ton of money? Just do the Yukon, you know, Northwest Territories. None of it's a little bit barren, but somehow our prime minister goes there and spends $1 million every fucking year, or our old one did. Do not go to Laval. Dude, the thing is, if you want hot chicks too, you have to go east in Canada, because the way our immigration worked with the British and French settlers is they would send boatloads of women to colonize, and they would get off in fucking like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and then they would pick, you know, 20 or whatever the fuck they were allotted, and then they would send the boat along to fucking Quebec, and then they would pick like 20, and then they would send it to Ontario, and then they would pick 20, and then by the time it got to us in Manitoba, there was just whoever the fuck was left. So genetically, the most hottest population in Canada is far east, because they would just come down the St. Lawrence River in boats. History Channel. Like, I don't know, if you want, like, our New Orleans is basically, you know, like the East Coast, but like, I don't know, I guess it'd be more Nova Scotia. I think is more heavily French based lineage. But like, dude, Newfoundland is like, that's our, like, you know, northern England. Like, we just like, we live in the same country. I can't fucking understand a word they're saying though. Oh, you stay where you're to, I'll come to where you're is. You're like, huh? You know, you're like, what the fuck are you saying? No, it's I'll come to where you're to. That's the expression. I'll come to where you're to. Newfies are crazy, dude. Tried asking for directions back to Montreal. Like 4 people looked at us and walked away because English. Yeah, fucking pricks. Yeah, Quebec like tried to become like their most popular political party for a long time in the 90s and earlier, maybe the 80s as well, was the Bloc Québécois. Our politics are based off of the British Parliament, so like we have multiple parties. Like we have Conservative, Liberal, New Democratic Party, and then, you know, Green Party, Bloc Québécois, and like, is there another party? Oh, there's this Conservative Party recently split into like, we now have a right-wing political party called the People's Party of Canada, which basically sewered the Conservative Party, which is kind of hilarious because they split their votes. But anyway, yeah, the Bloc Québécois was just a political party in Quebec that campaigned on digging the fucking river all around Quebec and making it a sovereign country. So they were literally separatists, and they still are, but they're not nearly as popular as they used to be. Like those old Frenchies wanted to literally just dig a fucking moat around Quebec and become their own fucking country. I think they ran for federal office to do it. Just insane. Like, how the fuck? But the fucked up thing is Quebec could win a federal election because almost the entirety of Canada's population is just Ontario and Quebec. Like, Quebec has more population than like Western Canada, which includes Manitoba, which is central, but like, you know, we're considered Western. It's always been like the story of Eastern Canada having all like the politics and like businesses and shit, and Western Canada just being fucking straight agriculture and poor people. It's like east and west of the train tracks kind of thing, but like Canadian level. I should do a history thesis on the degradation of female hotness in Canada as we progress west. All right, methods. Yeah, what are you gonna put for the methods and materials section? Like, all right, my materials were $3,000 cash. My methods were to bang prostitutes in every province in Canada, or ladies of the road, as we call them. Quebec is fucking crazy. Absolutely. Like, they want to leave, but they want our money. Because, like, there's so much of the population lives there that so much, like, tax money gets distributed there. So it's like, fuck you guys. Yeah, northern Canada is just straight wilderness, and it's not even that far north. I mean, if you get to Alberta, you can kind of get pretty far north when there's still like civilization, but like really everywhere else, like if you get north of like, I want to say like 300 kilometers of the border, you're in fucking no man's land. Like there is nothing, just endless nature. And when you're out there, it's just like, it's so vast. You're like, I could just walk in one direction for the rest of my life and I'd never see another person. I just die. And then you start thinking about all the pioneers, like, you know, that did all the beaver trails and shit in the portaging. Like, how the fuck do you, like, I'm gonna find a land crossing through the Rockies to the West Coast to see what's on the other side of the Rockies. You already traveled across the entire continent, you know, by foot. How the fuck did people do that? Because, like, the way Canadian history goes is, I was talking about this with Sleep in Sweden, because I'm like, I want to see Viking museums and shit from, like, other centuries. That's fucking mental. That's mental. Canada's just turned 150 years old. We're a baby country. What we learned in history class, for half of the year, we just learned about the fucking fur trade, because that's the only reason people came here is to fucking kill beavers. And then a bunch of people died trying to find the Northwest Passage and to, like, hike through the Rockies and see what was on the other side. And then so for the other half of the year, we have nothing to talk about, so we just talk about American history. Like, we literally just learned American history in high school because, like, there's fucking nothing else to talk about. We just run out of shit to talk about halfway through the year. The US has the Constitution, right? Like, our Charter of Rights and Freedoms was written in the fucking 80s. I don't think Canada became a completely fully sovereign nation from the UK until the 90s. And, like, we still have a governor general. We're still technically a constitutional monarchy. And, like, we got our fucking, I don't know who's in the Discord that was there. I recently said Happy Canada Day to all my international friends except New Zealanders. Fuck you guys. And no one asked what they did, but what they did was they asked for their independence from Britain, and they got it before we fucking did. They got it in the 40s. We fucking fought in World War I, and asked nicely, and we got our independence. I think the UK was like, we're not gonna force you to fight in World War I, but, you know, it'd be nice. And we said yes, and they were like, thank you. You may have independence. And we're like, ah, nice. But until then, we were a colony. So, like, in World War I, we were a colony still. As were, I think, most places. Like, that was the entire point, right? Of World War I, the German Empire versus the British Empire. I ain't no historian. All I know is about beaver furs. That's all I know about. Yeah, isn't that fucked up? We fought in both the world wars, and, like, I'm pretty sure the guys on Juno Beach landed before the Americans did on Omaha Beach. I don't know any of that shit. All I know is about trapping beavers. I watched Saving Private Ryan one time. Tell us about the War of 1812. Well, yeah, we burned the White House down. That's a good one. We could listen to the Arrogant Worms song. That'd be so much more easy to explain. But I don't remember the lyrics to it. And it, like, turns into that one verse is like the Battle of New Orleans parody. But yeah, like, everyone knows the Johnny Norton song, right? In 1814, we took a little trip on down Colonel Jackson down to mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we fought the bloody British in the town of New Orleans. We fired our guns, but the British kept a coming. There wasn't quite as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to running on down through Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. We fired our cannon till the barrel melted down, so we grabbed an alligator and we pulled another round. We filled his head with cannonballs and powdered his behind, and when we touched the powder off, the gator lost his mind. We fired our, you know, everyone knows that song. Everyone knows that song. Everyone knows that song. Passchendaele and Vimy Ridge was like our big things, yeah. A lot of fucking people died at Passchendaele. That was in France. Vimy Ridge was also in France, I believe. This is like 13 years ago, bro. This is fucking... Someone made this shit on... This is literally made on Windows Movie Maker, and my fucking teacher showed me this in, like, history class when I was in high school.
Oh, come back, proud Canadians.
Serbian instigated World War I and ended up with Germany overreacting. Classic Germany.
No hockey night in Canada.
There was no CBC.
Oh my God!
This video I made for my grade 11 social studies class. Wait a second. Do you think this is my high school teacher that made this video to show us? There's no fucking way, bro. That's the old pristine White House, by the way. Burn down all his stuff in the White House. Burn, burn, burn. And we're the ones that did it.
It burned, burned, burned while the president ran and cried. It burned, 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 and things were very historical. And the Americans ran and cried like a bunch of little babies. Wah, 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 in the War of 1812.
The Americans have never lost a war except the Gulf of Pigs and Vietnam and the War of 1812. Don't they have a segment where they do a parody of the Battle of New Orleans?
We fired our guns, but the Yankees kept it coming.
Yeah.
There wasn't quite as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and the Yankees started running down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Whoa, whoa. They ran through the bushes where
the beaver wouldn't go. They ran so fast they forgot to take their culture.
Back to America,
Like Gulf and Texaco. Whoa, whoa. This song's a banger. If you guys, actually, you guys have probably never heard the Pirates of Saskatchewan. I gotta play that. That's a classic.
Nice. Bring a pack of matches, and we'll burn the White House twice in the White House. Burn, burn, burn.
The Last Saskatchewan Pirate, right? It's about the government raising taxes on farmers too much, so a bunch of farmers just become pirates in Saskatchewan, which is landlocked. And they just sail the rivers and they just steal grain. So where I'm from, I used to go to the bar every night in college, literally every single day. And for a while, they played a Shania Twain song. I want to say, "Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under?" But like, for the most part, when it was 2 a.m. and they turned the lights on at this club I always used to go to, they would play this song. They would play The Last Saskatchewan Pirate. And that was the song to know. It's like, you have till the end of this song to get out, or else the bouncers are going to throw you on the fucking rocks outside. So you have until the end of this song to get out of the bar. This is what they used to play. Yeah, like literally just a group of British guys just literally walked all the way into Washington, D.C. and just burned the place down. Like, they didn't meet anyone. Like, there was like no resistance. They just walked into Washington and just burned the shit down and walked back. Like, that was literally it. War never changes. Yep. That's exactly how we got Saddam Hussein. We just sent a bunch of guys to just walk to Baghdad, and then they just burned him down. What the fuck? Captain Tractor wishes to assure its audience that no shoppers were harmed during the filming at the Palatial West Edmonton Mall. That also goes for the students who participated in the making of this film. Do not attempt this at home. Wow, thanks, Tractor Tom. This is how responsible Canadians are. The other thing I will say about Canada is that it's super multicultural to the point where, like, what's your background? People don't say Canadian. They're like, well, I'm 50% French on my mom's side. On my dad's side, I'm like half Irish there, because my grandma's last name is O'Malley, and my dad's side, where I get the name from, is Scottish. And then I got Métis on both sides. Got a little Native American on both sides. And then I got some Welsh in there too, somewhere. Or like people like got lots of Ukrainians and shit for like ever. So like, I don't know, like people were telling me like when I go to New York, like, oh, it's so multicultural, like it's crazy. And then I went to New York and I'm like, it's not that multicultural. Like Winnipeg, where I'm from, is extremely multicultural. Like I feel like Winnipeg is the most multicultural place I've been to ever. To be fair, when I was in New York, I was only in Manhattan, but still, it's not that multicultural. I met one guy from Brazil. I met some Australians who were vacationing there, but other than that, it was literally just Italians, Jews, and fucking Irish guys. Like Boston Irish guys. Did any other country besides America like fight for independence from Britain? There must have been lots of other ones, right? Basically all of them did. Okay, right. So we're the exception, asking nicely. How did Australia get independence? I know New Zealand and Canada asked nicely. Can anyone explain to me the Emu War? Like, how did Australia lose the Emu War? Like, I understand it's like curb a overpopulation problem, but like, how do you lose an Emu War? What was the problem? They just didn't have enough bullets? Or did like the emus like raid them, you know, like counterattack?